to be here today. Um, as Rose mentioned, my name is Chantelle. I'm the employment manager at Blind and Business, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the support we provide before handing over to our lovely speakers, Jess and Chris, to share their experiences. So who are Blind and Business? Well, we are a national charity that supports blind and partially sighted people into work. We work with school leavers, university students and graduates and professionals residing in the UK, providing support along the whole recruitment process. We were founded by 3 blind graduates who left university with great degrees, but struggled to get into good jobs because of the misconceptions surrounding their visual impairment. All 3 went on to do fantastic things. 2 are now partners at leading law firms, and the other is CEO of the Charities Aid Foundation Bank. But they founded Blind and Business to bridge that gap between education and employment and ensure other people did not face the same barriers that they did. So we have 2 services at Blind and Business. We have our Pathway service and our employment service. So our Pathway service works with young people aged 13 to 18 and is all centred around building confidence, building employability skills and providing advice and guidance on post-16 options. They run bespoke work experience programmes and also work experience programmes with employers, and last year supported 160 young people in work experience. So those bespoke work experience opportunities are tailored to each individual based on what their interests are, what they're keen on finding out more about with employers, and they've run work experience programmes with a range of employers over 3 days, both in person and virtually, building confidence, raising aspirations and developing those employability skills. And this year they've got work experience programmes with KPMG, Severn Trent and Cadent Gas, so a real mix of employers there. Pathway's flagship programme, Building Prospects, is a brilliant 5-week programme for young people covering different employability themes. So topics covered include technology, applications, interviews. So it's a great opportunity to develop those employability skills, build confidence and ask questions as well. Now, our employment service works with people aged 18 and over, providing support in getting into employment. So last year we supported around 50 graduates into work across a range of different industries, and we're tailored to each individual. So it's one-to-one support based on each individual and where they want to go. And we provide support along that whole process. So from career planning, if somebody's not too sure what roles or careers they'd like to go into, identifying their strengths, their skills, to support them in finding those careers that align with them, to sourcing those relevant opportunities, whether that's work experience, graduate jobs, apprenticeships, placement years, as well as providing feedback on applications and CVs to ensure skills and experiences are really standing out. We also provide advice and guidance on disclosing your visual impairment in the recruitment process and requesting adjustments in the recruitment process as well, alongside in the workplace. We also work quite closely in the employment service with employers, running a variety of events all centred on building confidence and those skills in the recruitment process. So we run employment insight days with employers where we'll head to an employer's office for the day. We'll find out more about the organisation, the various roles that they recruit for. It's an opportunity to network with professionals, getting hints and tips on how to stand out in the recruitment process and finding out more about their roles. And again, we try to run those in a range of different areas. So last year we had employer insight days with ITV, KPMG, the civil service. And this year we have employer insight days with Raw TV, which is a production company, the Financial Times, Unity Advisory, so a range of different industries there. Alongside our employer insight days, we also run mock interview events, both in person and virtually. So this is a great opportunity to practice your interview skills, getting feedback from professionals on areas of strengths in interviews and areas for improvement, which we can then work together for when it comes to the real thing, you're confident and prepared going forward. And our flagship event within our employment service is Education to Employment, which is a brilliant 2 days, all centred around getting recruitment ready. So on the first day, we always do a fun activity. In the past, that's included whitewater rafting, we've done rock climbing, and it's all about getting out of your comfort zone and doing something you might not ordinarily do. So it's always a good start to the event. We then, in the evening, have a lovely dinner where we have some of our alumni along to talk about their experiences in the workplace. And we've been very fortunate to have Jess and Chris join us for our dinner to share their experiences. After an overnight stay at the hotel, we then run a full mock assessment centre in the morning, running through activities that recruiters typically tend to run in their graduate scheme processes, which you get feedback on. And then we have a range of employers join us for mock interviews in the afternoon as well. So it's a fantastic 2 days, all centred around building confidence, building those employability skills that you can use in the recruitment process going forward. We've just penciled in our next education to employment event, actually, which will be taking place in August. So we will be posting more information on that event in due course. And lastly, as a charity that has been going for over 30 years, we've supported a range of people into roles and different industries. So we're able to connect individuals with professionals working in the industry that they're interested in or with a similar eye condition to discuss their career journey and get advice and guidance on navigating that recruitment process. And I'll quickly share a case study of a candidate that I worked with who accessed all aspects of our employment service, as I think it sums up really well the support we provide. So I worked with a candidate who first came to Blind Business, having applied to university to study physiotherapy, and unfortunately did not receive any offers. So we had conversations around next steps, what they would like to do. They were very keen and knew that their career pathway was to become a physiotherapist. So we arranged meetings with the individual and visually impaired physiotherapists to discuss the role, the pathways into the profession, and ask any questions that they had to the professionals that are working in that area. We then provided support with their UCAS application when applying to university, again, ensuring that their passion and their interest in physiotherapy was really standing out. And they were very happy to receive an offer, a few offers actually, to study physiotherapy at university, and had a few months until the September start date. So we then turned to applying for part-time work in the meantime. And as a registered massage therapist, we sourced relevant opportunities that related to the type of massage therapy that they were qualified to do, and also in the location that they were looking for, providing support with their application and interview preparation when it came to preparing for their interviews as well. They were offered a role and began working part-time as a massage therapist before starting university. Did really well at university, and once graduated, came back to Blind Business to access our support in applying for graduate roles in physiotherapy. So we supported in that process, sourcing those relevant opportunities, providing advice and guidance on applications, and also advice on disclosing their visual impairment in that process and ensuring their adjustments were in place going through the recruitment process. And they're doing very well. They were offered a role and are really enjoying their career as a physiotherapist. So I think that case study there just sums up kind of the support that we provide from initially finding those roles that resonate with an individual across that whole journey until somebody's in their career doing really well and becomes part of our alumni network. And to round up, I thought I'd go through some of the common questions I tend to get in initial meetings with candidates. And one of the first questions I tend to get is, what jobs can I do? And I look to flip that question, focusing on what an individual's skills and interests are, because there aren't any roles somebody with sight loss can't do besides drive a bus. So it's about focusing on what someone's strengths are, what their interests are, and what their skills are, and mapping out those career pathways that align with those. Another question that I get is around adjustments. What are reasonable adjustments? What adjustments can I request in the recruitment process? And an adjustment is a change or adaptation in the workplace or in the recruitment process to create the conditions to enable somebody to work to the best of their ability and ensure a fair and equal process. So in the recruitment process, that might include, but it's not limited to, extra time for activities, digital copies of written assessments, being assessed in a different format if an activity isn't accessible, or using assistive technology in that process. Another question that I get alongside adjustments is around disclosure and when should somebody disclose in the recruitment process. And there's no right or wrong answer to that question. It's a personal choice of when you disclose, or if you disclose in that recruitment process. You can do that at the start in the application stage of applying for a role. A lot of the time, organisations will have a section on disclosure in their application process, so you can disclose at that point, or before an interview, or during an interview as part of your interview answer. So there's no right or wrong in terms of when to disclose. My advice would be when disclosing to be clear and solutions focused. Don't assume an employer or the recruiter knows sight loss, as nobody knows your eyesight like you do and what adjustments and what support works best for you. And if you do need adjustments in that recruitment process, do disclose to ensure that you get those in place, and we're on hand to support with that process. And the last question is actually a question I tend to ask candidates rather than candidates asking me, is do you know about access to work? Because a lot of the candidates I work with haven't come across access to work before. So access to work is a government funded scheme that provides funding for any adjustments you need in the workplace. So that is funded by the government through access to work. It doesn't come out of your pay packet. And that can include potentially travel support in the form of taxis, assistive technology, sighted support in the workplace. And that process, you might have read about it in the news, can be quite lengthy. There are significant delays with access to work at the moment. So my advice is when you're offered a role, to start your access to work application as soon as possible. So it's an online form that you fill out. You'll then have a workplace assessment with an assessor, and are then awarded your access to work. But it can take a bit of time. So as soon as you're offered that role, that's when you can start your access to work application. So in summary, Blind and Business is on hand to provide support along the recruitment process and in work to ensure that each individual has the support they need to reach their goals. And at the core of what we do is all about building confidence and raising aspirations. If you'd like to find out more, I'm sure Bhavna and Rosie can share our information, but our contact details are on our website. And if you have any questions, please do share them in the Q&A section. But I'm very pleased. I'll now hand over to Jess to share her experiences and career journey.
Great, thank you, Chantelle. Yeah, I think this is like quite a appropriate segue because Chantelle was like a massive part of even why I'm in the job I'm in today. So I'm really excited to be here. I'll give you sort of a bit of background on me and my career. And yeah, as Chantelle said, I'm really happy to answer any questions at the end. So I started losing my vision when I was sort of at the start of secondary school, like age 11, 12. But I didn't get a diagnosis until I was 18, which I think is quite typical for a lot of us with Stargardt's. I'm now 28 and I've basically lost all of my central vision. I did this is a positive story, I promise, but I did, if I'm honest, really struggle through education. I loved school and it was quite frustrating that my vision was really getting in the way of me enjoying my studies. But I loved school and I then went on to university. So I ended up studying languages at university. And I moved away for university, lived independently. And that was fine. But as I said, I did really struggle with the sort of classroom aspect of learning. And I would say that was down to sort of two key reasons that Chantal has hit on. And I didn't really realize this until when I finished university, and I was starting to look for jobs. And I was looking at sort of support out there, but I wasn't looking at VI specific support because I thought, no, I don't need that. I'm fine, I can manage. And actually, it was my parents that about 10 years earlier had, without me knowing when I was diagnosed, gone to meet Blind in Business to see what it was all about. And so I reached out to them and went on one of Chantel's education to employment experiences, which is a residential, as she said, 2-day course. I was incredibly nervous, incredibly underconfident. And confidence was the one thing that I came away from that with. I didn't really realize that I was lacking it and that I needed it so much in order to succeed career-wise. But what it gave me was an insight into the fact that I can be ambitious, even if I'm visually impaired, that isn't going to hold me back. I met employers there that really were there to share expertise in terms of, support with applying to certain industries, but were there to like see me for my skill set and not just like the reasonable adjustments I would need to ask for. So confidence was a massive thing that Blind in Business was a really big part of, and they were, yeah, that was a massive game changer for me. And they also really taught me how to advocate for myself, which I think advocacy is one of those words that everyone repeats in this world. And until you kind of start doing it, you don't realize how important it is. But I really didn't know what sort of reasonable adjustments I might need in the workplace. I hadn't been using the right tech at university at all. And Blind in Business really helped me work that out, and gave me the confidence to learn that spiel that you can say, whether it's at interview or prior to interview when people ask you what you need. So that was really, really important for me. So from there, I accessed a lot of Bib's support, and I knew that I always wanted to work in the charity sector and in particular in an international charity. I started out working with Blind in Business, which was amazing. It gave me such a great start into the world of work. I then went on to work in for an international program at Google, which was like a dream role for me. And it really showed me that with the right confidence and with the right backing and with the right advocacy skills that I could achieve what I wanted to achieve. From there, I've gone on to work at the job I'm in currently, which is an international programs manager. So I support education programs globally for an international development charity. Um, and I'm going to go on to do a master's next year. So I would really say like sky's the limit, but I didn't know that until I came across Bib and they taught me how to advocate for myself and how to have confidence in myself and my skill set. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about my story. I'm really happy to answer any questions. But my real takeaway advice would be that it's not too early to reach out to Bib. They are there. As Chantal said, they have under 18s and over 18 support, and that the network that they have of visually impaired people, but also of people just in industry to talk to is incredibly helpful. And that's all part of how you build your confidence in terms of meeting people that are currently in the jobs, asking them questions. Like network is still incredibly important. And I think just finally, aside from that, like I've definitely had periods where I've been looking for roles and it's been really difficult. Unfortunately, the world of work just is really competitive, whether you're visually impaired or not. That's just a fact. And it can take lots and lots and lots of applications just to get an interview, let alone to secure a position. So as a visually impaired person, having the skills that you need, and the resilience and the confidence that we know we all have just from problem solving on a day-to-day basis. We're problem solvers and we're resilient, and those skills also really come in handy when it comes to applying for jobs too. So you've just got to sort of keep going on that front. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll hand over to Chris. We're going to hear from him next.
Great. So thanks, Jess. So my name's Chris. So in terms of my story, I guess. So I was diagnosed with Stargardt when I was 18. So kind of similar to Jess, I'd been noticing the symptoms for several years, but kind of put it down to just typical vision loss that people have, where they need glasses. And it wasn't until, I actually went to an optician, went through the process. And as they started to realize that, it was something that glasses wouldn't help with, that I ended up actually getting sent to a doctor to get those vision checks, and then eventually got that Stargardt's diagnosis. So as I say, it was about a month before my A levels where I actually got that diagnosis. So it was quite, basically at the end of my time at school. So I didn't really have any experience of adjustments while at school. But then going into university, I was able to get access to a lot of adjustments. So in particular, I got note takers, which was very helpful because I couldn't read the boards, but that was fine. So I ended up studying maths at university, which is particularly difficult to read off a board from because you need to know where every little number is and every little symbol. But I was able to get those adjustments. I was able to get extra time for exams. I was able to get, large prints, exams ready for me. So those adjustments were there. But what I was lacking in is, as Jess kind of talked about, was this confidence in what I would do after university. So I kind of had it in my head that even if I was like an academic person, I was not really someone who would do well in the world of work. It just wasn't for me. And it wasn't until I was graduating and I hadn't got a job lined up that I saw an email from Blind in Business saying about this education to employment event. And initially it seemed kind of almost a little bit suspicious because it was like, oh, well, we're going to pay for you to travel here and we're going to pay for your hotel, we're going to pay for your dinner, and you get to do all these interviews. And it wasn't really until I just sort of mentioned it to my parents that they said, no, you absolutely need to do this. And I'm so glad I did, because by going to that event, I was able to not just meet a lot of people who are sort of my age, who are in similar situations. They had, people who, like a lot of people had Stargardt's. That seemed to be actually the most common condition that people of kind of my age group who were there had. And then in particular, what was really helpful for my confidence were the mock interviews, because I was able to have an interview with Microsoft and the Office for National Statistics. And, the feedback I got from them was that if this was a real interview, we would take you to the next round. And that really helped my confidence. And so what I ended up doing after that was getting help from Blind in Business, where I was giving them a bit of help. I was volunteering a bit, and then they were supporting me. And initially I was able to get a job opportunity in Japan. So I worked there for a few months as an English teacher. And then when I came back, I got support from Blind in Business to help in my kind of long-term career, which was as an actuary, which is a very kind of mathematical, statistical role within insurance companies, which came with a lot more exams while working. So kind of managing, doing the exams while doing the job, and then also kind of matching that with the visual impairment came with some issues. But what I found was that it was manageable. It was something which, companies, is not just a nice thing for them to help you, it's a legal responsibility they have. And so you got to remind yourself of that, because, my experience with different companies that I've worked at over the years is that some of them, they're very easy when it comes to making adjustments, in as much as, you tell your manager, I need this, I need a big screen. And then, lo and behold, you've got a big screen on your desk, within a few days. And then other companies I've worked at have been pretty awful, because, if you get these big companies and they don't want legal action, so they set these like really strict rules about applying for it, and then you have to apply through this, and then you have to get approval from this, and it can take months before you get the adjustments you need. And so in those instances, you've got to remind yourself and them that, this is not something that you're asking as a favor. It's something that you need to do your job, and you need to make sure that they know it. But what I found was, as time went on, I was building that confidence. I was realizing that actually, if I look at where I am now, so, I've been, I'm 36 now. I've been working since, in my current career for 13 plus years. And I've been able to make progression through that. And I can't really think of anything that's kind of prevented me from that progression. So I don't think I would be in a better position now if I didn't have this vision impairment. So it came with a number of challenges over the years. It is annoying having to get these adjustments. It is annoying that, certain presentations, you can't read the screen. So you have to make sure that, you make adjustments ahead of time, and that you let people know what you need. But overall, I would say, at worst, it's been a frustration. But really overall, I can't think of something it's prevented me from doing, other than learning to drive. But I can get over that. So yeah, I would say, just in summary, that having the condition hasn't really held me back. It's important to remember that, any lack of confidence you have, this is where something like Blind in Business can help you with, because they can give you those mock interviews. They can put you in touch with, people like myself and Jess and others who can kind of support you and give you advice. And then just to remind yourself that there's not really anything that's going to hold you back. And any reasonable adjustments that can be made will be made, and should be made. And just as long as you remind yourself that that is their responsibility, not just yours, but also just learning what works for you, and learning that actually there's essentially no limit to what you can do. So yeah, that's it from me. And if you have any more questions, or you want to reach out to me after this, I'm sure Chantelle or the others will send you my email or my LinkedIn. So please get in touch.
Thank you so much, Chris and Jess and Chantelle. It's been so interesting, especially just to hear